The desert wind whispered like a dying breath across Jared's cracked windshield as his old Ford F-150 rolled down the empty interstate. The digital clock on the dashboard read 11:47 p.m. Too late to belong to today, too early to belong to tomorrow. The gas gauge blinked red, an urgent warning that couldn't be ignored. Jared sighed and took the nearest exit, following a faded sign that read, Fuel Diner, 0.8 mile. The gas station stood like a forgotten relic in the middle of nowhere, just two pumps under a flickering neon light. Behind them, a rundown convenience store leaned slightly to one side, its broken sign hanging by one rusted chain. Jared pulled up next to pump number 2 and stepped out, the cold desert air biting through his flannel jacket. He grabbed the nozzle. The metal felt oddly cold, like something that had never known warmth. As the pump clicked and began to fill the tank, a strange smell hit him. Gasoline mixed with something sour and chemical, like spoiled ammonia. He coughed and glanced toward the store. The glass door creaked open on its own. Inside, the lighting was sickly yellow, casting long shadows down narrow aisles of stale chips and expired candy. There was no radio playing, no buzzing from the freezers, just a hum, low and dissonant. Behind the counter stood a man in a faded trucker hat. He was tall, too thin, and pale. His skin had a greenish hue, like something that had been underwater for too long. His name tag was almost unreadable, but Jared could make out the letters. L-U-K. Just filling up, Jared muttered, placing his card on the counter. Luke didn't reply. He only turned his head toward Jared, slowly, so slowly it made an audible creak, like bones rubbing together. "The machine shuts off after midnight," he rasped, voice hollow and strange, "but payment is still required. Here, we pay with stories." Jared let out a nervous laugh. "What's that supposed to mean?" Suddenly the lights outside went out. Darkness swallowed the desert. The only glow came from the store, casting a fragile bubble of light. In the blackness beyond, Jared heard something. Click, 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 like claws on pavement. He turned to the window and saw it. A silhouette low to the ground, moving unnaturally fast. Too big for a dog, too smooth. The register screen flickered to life. It showed security camera footage. Jared watched himself at pump number 2. Behind him, a towering figure loomed, horned, eyes burning like coals. It tilted its head toward the camera, and then, horrifyingly, it seemed to look through the screen, directly at him. He stumbled back, knocking over a rack of candy bars. Luke smiled, the expression thin and unnatural. "Your first story has just begun," he whispered, "and the longer you stay silent, the hungrier it gets." Outside, the wind howled, but now it sounded like something else. Not wind, not quite, more like breathing. Wet, eager. The pump gave a final clang, signaling it was done. But the hose didn't stop. Something thick and black dripped from the nozzle. Jared took a step back, realizing whatever filled his tank wasn't gasoline anymore. Jared froze. The liquid spilling from the pump shimmered in the light. Too dark, too thick, almost tar-like. It sizzled when it touched the ground, releasing faint wisps of steam that curled like fingers around his boots. He let go of the handle, but the flow didn't stop. He stumbled back toward the store, glancing at the desert's edge. No movement, no sound, but the sense of being watched hung thick in the air like smoke before a fire. The glass door screeched as he entered. Luke was still behind the counter, perfectly still, his pale eyes never blinking. The register screen showed static now, flashing frames of things Jared couldn't fully comprehend, hands reaching up from beneath a gas station, mouths without faces, and red eyes in pitch-black rooms. "What the hell is this place?" Jared snapped, his voice tight with fear. Luke didn't move. "It's a crossroad," he said softly, "between where you were and where you don't want to go." Jared clenched his fists. "Enough riddles. I just want to fill my tank and get back on the road." Luke's lips twitched into a crooked smile. "Then you better hurry. She doesn't like to wait." "She?" Jared asked. Luke didn't answer. Instead, he raised one bony finger and pointed toward the window. Jared turned and saw her. At pump number 2 stood a woman. At least she looked like one. Long black hair obscured her face, and her clothes hung in tatters. Her limbs were wrong, too long, too thin, bending at angles that screamed unnatural. She tilted her head, slowly listening, and then she began to move. Not walk, slide, as if the earth itself carried her forward. Jared stumbled back, heart hammering. "What is that?" "She collects stories," Luke said. "The unspoken ones. The secrets we bury so deep we forget they're even ours." The woman was halfway to the store now, moving faster. "You said I have to tell a story," Jared said, panic rising. "What kind of story?" "Something real," Luke whispered. "Something that hurts." Jared racked his brain, breath coming short. The woman was almost at the door now. He could hear a scraping noise. Her nails or bones or something worse. "I was 17, Jared said, voice cracking. "There was a kid in my school. Benji, he followed me around. I thought he was weird, a loser. So I told people he said things he didn't. Things that made him sound dangerous." Luke's eyes gleamed. "They expelled him. His parents pulled him out of town. A year later, I found out he hung himself in his basement." Outside, the woman stopped. Her head tilted again as if listening closely. "I never told anyone," Jared said, barely able to breathe. "Not even myself." The store went deathly quiet. Luke gave a slow, solemn nod. "That will keep her away, for now." Jared looked out the window. The woman was gone, not walking away, not fading, just no longer there. But the air still felt wrong, as if she hadn't left, only moved closer, unseen. Luke leaned in. "She's tasted your story, Jared, and now she wants more." The lights above buzzed and flickered. The pump clicked again. And outside, in the back seat of Jared's truck, something moved. Jared's spine locked as he stared through the smeared glass. The silhouette in the back seat was barely visible, just the faintest shift of shadow behind the fogged window. But he saw it. Something crouched low, watching, waiting. He shoved the store door open and ran toward the truck, gravel crunching under his boots. The desert wind had turned colder, sharper, biting into his face like needles. As he reached the driver's side, he stopped. His reflection in the window looked wrong, off by a fraction of a second, like a bad TV sync. His doppelganger blinked after he did, smiled when he didn't. He yanked open the door. Nothing. The cab was empty. No shadow, no figure. Just the faint smell of burning plastic and lavender. Jared climbed in, locked the doors, and slammed the ignition. Click. Again. Click. The truck wouldn't start. He tried a third time, gripping the key hard enough to whiten his knuckles. The dashboard lit up, but not the way it should. The screen didn't show speed or fuel or mileage. It showed a face. Not his, a woman's face, pale skin, hollow eyes, a mouth stretched into an unnatural grin, as if her cheeks had been slashed open at the corners. Her lips didn't move, but her voice echoed inside the truck like it came from beneath the seats. "Tell me another one." Jared's hand shut off the key. The face vanished. The engine sputtered to life, coughing like it hadn't been started in decades. The lights flickered, normally now. The music kicked on, old country static, but oddly warped. Every lyric sounded like run, run, run. He shifted into reverse and peeled away from the pump, gravel spinning behind his tires. But as he passed the store, he saw Luke again, still behind the counter, still watching. Only now Luke was smiling. Not with lips, with eyes. Jared drove fast. Desert signs blurred past. The moon cast cold light on the blacktop. He drove for miles, until the gas station disappeared behind him. Until the fuel gauge dipped back toward half. Only then did he breathe. But something in the cab felt wrong, off balance, like the air had weight on one side. He glanced in the rearview mirror. For a moment, he saw her again, her face between the seats, inches from his own reflection. He screamed, slamming the brakes. The truck skidded, dust and rocks flying. When it stopped, the cab was empty. Again. He stepped out, heart pounding, scanning the desert. Silence. The kind that vibrates in your skull. He walked around the truck. No damage. No tracks. But the back seat window was rolled down. Only an inch, but Jared never rolled it down. As he stared, a whisper drifted out from the opening. Dry, thin, unmistakably female. You owe me 11 more stories. Then the radio inside the truck flipped on by itself. No music, just a static voice whispering over and over. Don't run. Running makes it worse. Jared gunned the engine and sped off into the endless dark, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. The desert stretched in all directions like a graveyard with no headstones. Just dirt, wind, and shadows that moved when they shouldn't. His knuckles clenched the steering wheel. Get a grip, he muttered to himself. You're just tired, just hallucinating. But then he saw the sign. Exit 13, 1 mile. White letters on green steel, pristine despite the rusted supports. Beneath it, rest stop, phone, shelter. He hadn't seen that sign earlier, he was sure of it. Still, when exit 13 approached, something inside him screamed no, but he ignored it. The road behind felt cursed, and this was the only sign of civilization for miles. The off-ramp curved gently, vanishing behind a row of dried-out Joshua trees. Jared followed it, tires crunching against broken pavement. And then, the road simply ended. No rest stop, no phone, no lights. Just a dead end into a dirt lot surrounded by nothing. Jared stopped the truck and stepped out. Silence. Not peaceful, not natural. A silence that smothered sound before it was born. Even his footsteps were muffled, like he was walking in a dream. A wooden sign stood crooked nearby. He approached it, brushing sand from the faded letters. It read, "Welcome to Exit 13 where stories sleep." Something moved behind him. He spun. No one. But when he turned back, the sign had changed. Now it read, 10 stories left. Jared's breath caught. He hadn't said anything. Not out loud. But something had counted the ones he'd told. He backed toward the truck, his foot landing on something soft. He looked down. A book. Old. Leather-bound. Its cover had no title, only his name etched deep in the spine. He picked it up, flipping to the first page. It was blank, until ink began to form on its own. Entry 1, Benji. Entry 2, the passenger. Then the next page started writing itself. Entry 3, Exit 13. And beneath it, the ink began to bleed, forming a sentence he didn't write. You must speak them aloud, or she will take your tongue next. Jared dropped the book. It hit the dirt silently, as if sound itself refused to exist here. The truck's engine sputtered behind him. He turned back and froze. In the driver's seat sat a woman, head bowed, long black hair falling over her face. She didn't move, didn't breathe. But her hands, those pale, elongated hands, gripped the steering wheel too tightly, knuckles straining the skin. She was waiting. He wasn't the driver anymore. This wasn't his truck anymore. Jared took one step forward, and her head snapped up, eyes black as oil. Smiles split ear to ear. And from the truck speakers, her voice whispered, "What story will you tell me next, Jared?" Jared staggered back, pulse pounding like a war drum. The woman in the truck never blinked. Her gaze, black and endless, held him in place like he was caught in tar. His voice was caught in his throat. Then faintly, just faintly, he felt her inside his head. "Tell me another." The thought didn't sound like his. It carried her chill. He stammered, unable to look away. "I was 8. There was a girl, Elise." The truck's interior lights flickered. Her grin widened. "She used to sit alone on the swings at school. Weird kid, Pale, didn't talk much. She drew creepy stuff in her notebooks, trees without leaves, kids with hollow eyes. He swallowed. The memories clawed their way up from where he'd buried them. Everyone avoided her, except me. One day I dared my friends I'd talk to her. Just a joke. She looked so happy when I sat next to her. Jared clenched his jaw, remembering that smile. Not creepy, not then, just hopeful. But the next day I told everyone she tried to kiss me, that she followed me home, that she was obsessed. The smile in the truck didn't move, but he swore he heard laughter, wet and cold. They started calling her Witch Girl. Kids threw things. Her parents pulled her out of school after someone left a dead rat in her backpack. Jared's voice shook. I never saw her again. Never knew what happened. But the look she gave me when she left, like she'd never forget. The truck door opened slowly. The woman inside tilted her head as if satisfied. Then she vanished. No burst, no fade. Just there 1 second, gone the next. The book on the ground flipped pages by itself. Entry 4, Elise. And beneath it, in fresh ink, 9 stories left. Jared picked it up with trembling fingers. The air felt heavier now, thick with her presence, even in absence. He climbed into the truck and started the engine. It turned over this time, but the display screen was no longer showing as fuel or music. Instead, it pulsed with red letters. Story debt pending. Next stop, the old playground. What? He muttered. But the truck rolled forward before he touched the gas. The desert shifted, the highway bent, and soon, to his horror, he saw it in the headlights, a chain-link fence. Beyond it, rusted swings, a half-buried merry-go-round, a sandbox with broken toys poking out like bones. His old elementary school playground. And someone was sitting on the swings, not moving. Jared didn't want to get out. Every cell in his body screamed against it. But the truck refused to reverse. The doors wouldn't open unless he leaned forward. The book on the passenger seat glowed faintly. Waiting. He stepped out, gravel crunching beneath his boots. The girl on the swing slowly raised her head. It wasn't Elise. It was him. His 8-year-old self with hollow eyes and a grin stitched too wide. You think you buried them, the boy whispered, but they've been digging up ever since. Then the swing creaked, and the boy vanished like smoke and wind. Behind Jared, the merry-go-round started spinning by itself, and from every shadowed corner, laughter rose. Children's laughter. Broken, wrong, like a memory turned inside out. Jared backed away from the spinning merry-go-round, its rusted metal squealing like a wounded animal. The children's laughter around him didn't come from joy. It came from somewhere else, like echoes of things that once were, or things that should never be. He turned, eyes scanning the edge of the playground. The desert beyond had vanished. In its place stood a warped chain-link fence stretching infinitely in every direction, as if the playground were floating in its own pocket of reality. Then came the dragging sound. Metal scraping against pavement. He turned sharply. Out past the old teeter-totter, a tall figure was emerging from behind the slide. At first, it looked like a man in a suit, businesslike, almost out of place here. But then Jared saw it. The legs, bent backward at the shins, bone grinding on gravel. The man had no knees. He moved by dragging his feet with a horrific scraping sound, each step like fingers on chalkboard. And his face, blank, no eyes, no mouth, just skin stretched over bone. Jared stumbled back, mouth dry. The figure raised one hand and pointed directly at him. From behind Jared, the child's voice, his own voice, whispered, "He only comes when you lie." Jared turned toward the swings again. Nothing. The child version of himself was gone. But the man with no knees was closer now, no longer dragging himself but floating slightly above the ground, twitching with unnatural spasms. "You lied about Elise," the voice said again. Jared spun toward the book in his hand. The page was already turning. Entry 5, The man with no knees. Below it, 8 stories left. The ink bled further. Speak or be taken. The figure came closer, his twitching face beginning to fold inwards, as if peeling itself away. Panicked, Jared blurted, "There was a janitor in our middle school, Mr. Fenn. Everyone said he lived in the basement, in some little room with no windows." The man with no knees paused. Encouraged, Jared continued, "People used to dare each other to knock on his door after hours. I did it once, just once. I knocked and ran. But later that night I saw someone crawl out from under my bed. It wasn't him, but it wore his face." The playground creaked. The slide rusted over before his eyes. The seesaw split in two. And the man with no knees smiled, a split tearing open where a mouth shouldn't be. Inside it were teeth that didn't end. Layers of them. But then he began to dissolve, fading like ash in the wind. The laughter stopped. The merry-go-round slowed. And once again, Jared stood alone. The book closed itself with a quiet snap. He rushed to the truck. It started on the first turn. This time, the dashboard screen showed a new prompt. Next story in 12 miles. And below that, 8 stories left, no turning back. Jared drove into the dark, leaving the playground and its ghosts behind. But he didn't feel relief. He felt hunted. And from the back seat, a whisper he couldn't ignore slithered forward once more. "Keep talking, Jared, or I will." The desert had returned, blank and quiet, as if the world had reset itself. Jared drove in silence, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting the man with no knees to be crouched in the back seat. But it was empty, at least for now. The dashboard display blinked. Next story in 2 miles. He gritted his teeth. 2 miles to what? He whispered, but he already knew. Another memory. Another haunting. Another sin. Then he saw it. A mailbox on the side of the road, crooked and rusted. The name read Danvers. Behind it, a small paved driveway led to a modest suburban home, his childhood neighborhood. But this wasn't where he grew up. It was a memory of a place that shouldn't be here, in the middle of the desert. The street sign said Sycamore Lane, but Jared had never been on a street by that name. Still, he stopped the truck. He was being led, and resistance was pointless. He approached the house slowly. The porch light flickered on by itself. The front door creaked open with a moan that cut into his bones. The living room was exactly as he remembered from a house his aunt once lived in, complete with dusty doilies, an old TV with dials and wallpaper that peeled like shedding skin. But no one lived here now, except for the sound, soft, in the walls, scratching. Jared turned toward the hallway. It led to the basement door. He didn't want to go down there, but he did. Each creaking stair felt like stepping deeper into a grave. The scratching grew louder, wet, urgent. It wasn't rats, it wasn't mice. It was fingers. When he reached the bottom, the pull chain light buzzed to life. In the corner of the room stood a child-sized door, one that hadn't been there before. He crawled toward it, heart hammering, and opened it. Inside was a boy. His face was pale and sunken, eyes ringed with purple bruises. He didn't look up. He just kept scratching the wall with broken fingernails. Jared choked. "Timothy?" The boy froze. That name had slipped out like a reflex. Timothy Danvers. A kid who used to live next door to his aunt. Quiet, lonely, obsessed with Jared. "I told people he was spying on my cousin," Jared whispered, "that he was creepy, that he touched her doll." He remembered the adults' faces, the shouting, the police. Timothy was taken away. He never came back. The boy in the wall turned around slowly. His face had no eyes, only black holes that wept ink. "Your lies build rooms," he rasped, "and I'm still living in this one." Jared stumbled back, shaking. The book flipped open in his hands. Entry 6. Timothy Danvers. 7 stories left. The boy stepped forward from the crawlspace. But as Jared scrambled up the basement stairs, the walls began to change, covered in crayon drawings of Jared's face with X's through the eyes. The last thing he heard before the door slammed behind him. "You keep building. I'll keep scratching." Back in the truck, Jared sat frozen, sweating. The dashboard blinked again. Next stop, Cemetery Road 6 miles. His foot hit the gas, but the whisper from the vents chilled him to the core. 7 more, unless you run out first. The tires hummed over cracked asphalt as Jared sped through the endless dark, his grip on the wheel bone white. The truck's headlights barely pierced the gloom ahead, and even the stars had abandoned the sky. Only the glowing dashboard display remained constant. Next stop, Cemetery Road 0.5 miles. He didn't remember ever hearing of a cemetery road, but tonight the road remembered him. The turn appeared suddenly. No signs, no markers, just a jagged path of gravel and broken fence posts. As he veered onto it, the temperature inside the truck dropped fast enough to fog the windows. He wiped the windshield with his sleeve, only to reveal rows of crooked headstones stretching endlessly into the black. There was no town, no church, just death. His headlights swept across a wrought iron gate, hanging open like a mouth waiting to swallow. As he passed through, the truck's engine died. He cursed, pounding the steering wheel. Then he saw her, standing alone between the graves. A woman in a white dress, torn and filthy. Her long black hair clung to her face. She held a lantern, its flame flickering green. He didn't want to open the door, but it opened on its own. He stepped out. Gravel crunched underfoot, but hers made no sound. As he approached, the fog thickened, blurring the grave markers into indecipherable stone. "I know who you are," Jared said, voice unsteady. She didn't speak, just raised her lantern. It lit up a nearby grave. His breath caught. Melissa Bragg, 1985, 1999. He remembered now. Adair in high school, a group of kids drinking behind an abandoned funeral home. Melissa, the new girl, wanted to fit in. He dared her to go inside. Jared bit his lip. "You never came back out." They searched, cried, lied to the police. He lied best of all. "I saw someone grab her," he told them. "A man. I didn't get a good look." But there was no man. Melissa had screamed once from inside, then silence. He ran. He never looked back. "I was scared," Jared whispered. The woman slowly raised her hand and pointed to another grave. This one didn't have a name. Only one word etched deep and angry: liar. Jared trembled as the book flipped itself open once more. Entry 7. Melissa Bragg. 6 stories left? Suddenly the lantern flared, casting shadows all around. And from those shadows, hands began to reach up from the ground. Pale, clawed, trembling hands. They weren't trying to pull him under. They were clawing their way out. One by one, the silhouettes of others he had wronged rose, shambling toward him through the fog. Jared ran, back to the truck. The engine roared to life, screaming like it had been shocked awake. He peeled out of Cemetery Road, hands shaking, breath ragged. In the mirror, the woman still stood between the graves, watching. The dashboard display now read, "Yano, next story, in 10 miles. 6 left. You can't outrun memory." The truck rolled into a sliver of civilization, an old gas station beside a flickering neon motel sign. The place looked long abandoned, but the sign still blinked in slow, dying pulses. Vacancy. Jared didn't want to stop, but he was exhausted. His hands trembled, his vision blurred, and his thoughts spun in loops of guilt and dread. He pulled in anyway. The dashboard displayed, "Next story. Check in. Room 103. He didn't remember typing that. The clerk behind the counter didn't speak, just slid him a key on a dusty chain, never making eye contact. Jared took it without a word, and walked down the cracked corridor of the single-floor motel, the night air thick with static. Room 103's door was already slightly open. He pushed it gently. Inside, a room stuck in time. Floral wallpaper, boxy television, a musty bedspread. Everything screamed 1970s. The bathroom light flickered. The mirror was shattered. Jared sat on the bed, his breathing slowed. For a moment, he felt numb. Then the TV turned on by itself. Static hissed from the screen. And then, images. Grainy footage of a motel hallway. This hallway. Jared watched himself appear on screen, entering room 103. Then someone else followed. A man, tall and faceless, wearing Jared's clothes. On screen, the second Jared looked directly into the camera, right at him. The book on the nightstand opened on its own. Entry 8, room 103. 5 stories left. The real Jared stood quickly, scanning the room. A creak. From the closet. He stepped toward it, every hair on his body rising. He opened the door fast, expecting something monstrous. But it was empty. Except, on the floor, was an old VHS tape labeled Jared May 2003 in shaky handwriting. His heart froze. May 2003. Senior trip. They stayed at a motel. One of his friends, Brian, had gone missing that night. Everyone thought he ran away. But Jared remembered more. A prank gone too far, locking Brian in a room, laughing as he pounded the door. He never opened it. By morning, Brian was gone. Jared stared at the tape. A whisper came from the shattered bathroom mirror. Play it. The TV screen glitched again. Now showing room 103. But inside it was Brian. Still 17, still trapped, screaming and pounding on the door. Jared's laughter echoed from somewhere off screen. Jared's knees buckled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't mean to leave him." The screen flickered one last time, showing Brian staring directly into the camera, tears of blood streaming down his face. Then darkness. Jared blinked, and suddenly the room was different. The wallpaper decayed, roaches swarming. The carpet squelched under his feet. The bed was wet. And on the wall above it, written in black, "You left me here." Jared grabbed the book and ran. Outside, the gas station was gone. The motel behind him flickered, then vanished completely. Only the truck remained. As he started it, the display showed, "Next, the silo, 9 miles. 5 left. The rooms are filling." And in the side mirror, he saw room 103's door still swinging open. Waiting. The road narrowed, flanked by endless fields of dead corn stalks that whispered under a cold wind Jared didn't feel. The sky was bruised purple as the sun dipped behind the horizon. Ahead, the silhouette of an old grain silo rose like a black monolith against the fading light. The kind of place kids dared each other to explore, but no one ever did. The dashboard blinked. Next story in 0.2 miles. Jared slowed the truck and pulled over. The air smelled like rust and rot. He stepped out. The ground was cracked, barren. No animals, no birds. Just the low hum of the silo. He walked to the heavy door, which creaked open with ease. Inside, the air was thick, suffocating. The walls were lined with rusted ladders and broken machinery. Far above, a faint blue glow pulsed. Jared started climbing. Higher and higher. The metal groaned beneath his hands. Halfway up, the glow flickered, and he heard a voice, soft, breathy, and childlike, calling his name. "Jared, come find me!" His heart raced. At the top, the blue glow revealed a small hatch. He pulled it open. Inside was a tiny girl, no older than 5, with hollow eyes and a smile that didn't reach her face. She held a doll, its face scratched out. "You left me here," she whispered. Jared's breath caught. The girl stepped forward and suddenly the floor beneath him gave way. He fell through darkness. When he landed, he was in a room surrounded by mirrors. each reflecting a version of himself. Some smiled, some cried, some screamed. The girl's voice echoed, "Face your stories, Jared. Face yourself." The book flipped open. Entry 9, The Silo Girl. 4 stories left. Jared's reflection in the mirror began to warp, showing all the faces he tried to forget. He realized the silo wasn't just a place. It was a trap for his own memories, a prison of guilt. The girl reached out, and Jared reached back, ready to confront what he had buried. The dashboard blinked again as the truck started itself. Next stop, railway crossing, 7 miles. The voice whispered one last chilling promise. 4 left, but the last ones never leave. Jared's truck sped toward the distant clatter of train tracks slicing through the barren landscape. The sun had fully disappeared, leaving a black sky studded with cold, indifferent stars. The dashboard glowed softly. Next story in 0.3 miles. As he approached, the crossing gates slammed down with a bone-rattling thud, though no train was in sight. The warning lights blinked frantically, bathing the truck in ominous red. The air grew thick, heavy, and charged. Jared's breath quickened. He stepped out cautiously, the gravel crunching underfoot. Ahead, on the tracks, a shadowy figure stood motionless, a man in a tattered conductor's uniform, his face obscured by darkness. "Wait," Jared whispered, heart pounding. The man lifted a hand and pointed down the tracks. Jared looked. An old rusted train car sat on the rails, doors slightly ajar. Curiosity and terror pulled him closer. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of decay and lost time. Faint voices echoed, whispers of passengers long gone. Jared noticed a faded photo on the floor. A family smiling on a bright summer day. His chest tightened. It was his family, his parents, his sister. He had left them behind. The book flipped open by itself. Entry 10, The Train to Nowhere. 3 stories left. Suddenly the train's whistle blew, a mournful, piercing sound that seemed to shake the earth. Jared turned to run, but the conductor's hand gripped his shoulder, cold, unyielding. "You cannot escape the past," the voice rasped. Jared's vision blurred. The train doors slammed shut, trapping him inside. The lights flickered, and in the darkness he saw faces pressed against the windows, ghosts of the forgotten. The truck's engine roared behind him. He was thrown back into the driver's seat as the crossing gate lifted. The dashboard flashed. Next stop, the final station, 5 miles. The whisper in the vents was colder than ice. 3 left. After that, your story ends, or never ends at all. Jared's hands clenched the steering wheel as the miles ticked down. The dashboard's ominous countdown glowed. Next story in 0.1 miles. Ahead, a deserted train station emerged from the fog, a skeletal structure, walls cracked, windows shattered, and a clock frozen at midnight. He stepped out, heart hammering, and felt the chill settle deep in his bones. The platform was empty. Yet the sound of distant footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. A figure appeared, shrouded in darkness but unmistakably familiar, his own reflection, twisted and hollow-eyed. The book snapped open on the hood of the truck. Entry 11, The Final Station. One last story. The reflection spoke with Jared's voice, but colder, emptier. "You've run from your guilt," it said. "Now face it." The fog thickened, swirling around Jared like a living thing. Visions flashed, every wrong, every lie, every loss he'd buried. His mother's tear-streaked face, his father's silent disappointment, his sister's empty chair. The shadows reached out, pulling him toward the edge of the platform. "You can't run anymore." Jared stumbled back, but the reflection smiled, a cruel, knowing grin. The platform vanished beneath him. He fell into darkness. Then light. He was back in the truck. The engine roared to life. The dashboard blinked. Stories complete, but the road never ends. Jared exhaled, sweat soaking his shirt. Outside, dawn was breaking. The night's horrors faded, but the weight of memory stayed. He realized this journey was never about escape. It was about facing himself. And maybe, just maybe, finding a way to forgive. As the sun rose, Jared drove forward into the uncertain light of a new day. The city